My name is Julia Carter, and I'm 31 years old. For the last 12 years, I've given everything I have to one place, Carter Brew House, our family's coffee shop, the heart of Main Street, the one with the creaky oak floorboards and cinnamon sugar scent that makes you feel like you're wrapped in a warm hug. When people think of our cafe, they think of me. I'm the one who greets them every morning at 6 a.m., who remembers their favorite drink and their kids' soccer team. I'm the one who trained every barista that passed through our doors, the one who covered shifts when someone got sick, handled inventory, filed taxes, planned holiday promotions, and cleaned the espresso machine at midnight more times than I can count. I turned down a management position at a big-name roastery in Boston to stay here. I stayed when my college friends moved away. I stayed when I got sick, when I lost people, when I should have walked away, because I believed I was building something that mattered, something we would share, that I would one day lead. But I was wrong. I didn't realize how wrong until the Friday afternoon when I opened the safe looking for vendor receipts and found something else entirely. A notarized agreement signed by both my parents, transferring 70% ownership of Carter Brew House to my sister, Isabel. Isabel, the same sister who'd only recently moved back to town after a decade of floating between cities, art projects, and ex-boyfriends. The one who called the cafe quaint and worked behind the counter like she was starring in a lifestyle blog. That moment cracked something open in me. I stood there, paper in hand, heart racing, wondering how long they'd planned it, how long I'd been the only one in the family who didn't know. But before I tell you what happened after that, what I did, what I lost, and what I gained, I want to ask you something. Have you ever poured your heart into something only to be pushed aside like you never mattered? If you have, you're not alone. My story might just be yours too. If you've ever felt overlooked, underestimated, or quietly betrayed by the people you love most, this story is for you. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Because sometimes the hardest battles are the ones we fight in silence, and it's time we spoke them out loud. My sister Isabel Carter had always been a mystery wrapped in a silk scarf and smelling like jasmine and wanderlust. She was 3 years older, wildly artistic, and chronically untethered. While I ran espresso shots and balanced payroll spreadsheets, Isabel was gallivanting through Lisbon or painting murals in some co-op in Montreal. When she moved back to our coastal town 2 years ago, it was dramatic, as always. A breakup with a Swiss photographer, she said. Needed space, needed roots. My parents welcomed her like a lost queen returning home. My mom practically cried. My dad pulled out the vintage wine. And me? I smiled and poured her a cappuccino. I didn't mind at first. I missed her, truly. We were different, but not enemies. I thought, naively, that maybe having her home would bring some balance. I could run the cafe, she could handle the creative stuff. She had a good eye, I'll give her that. She redesigned the shop's logo, revamped our social media, and posted dreamy golden hour videos that actually brought in a younger crowd. My mom was thrilled. Both my girls in the business, she kept saying at every family dinner, just like I always hoped. My dad, on the other hand, started behaving oddly. He stopped looping me into supplier negotiations, started holding quick chats with Isabel in the back office, and closed the door behind them. I'd walk in on conversations that went silent the moment I appeared. Isabel always smiled, said it was just brainstorming, but her eyes told a different story. Then came the changes. Isabel floated a suggestion to reimagine the menu, cut some of our signature items, add lavender foam and mushroom lattes. I pushed back gently, reminding them what our regulars loved, but my dad overruled me. "You're too attached to tradition, Julia," he said once. "Isabel's bringing fresh energy." That hurt more than I let on. I'd modernized our entire point-of-sale system, organized tasting events, negotiated supplier discounts, kept us afloat through a brutal pandemic. But sure, let's call me traditional. I swallowed it, smiled, showed up at 5:30 a.m. the next day like always. Then the day came, that Friday. I was in the office looking for last quarter's tax documents when I found a sealed brown envelope tucked beneath a pile of design samples. I wasn't snooping. I was working. But once I saw the words transfer of business ownership, I couldn't stop myself. I sat down. My hands trembled. I read every word, 70% to Isabel Carter, 30% retained jointly by Anthony and Maria Carter. My name was nowhere on the 18 pages. No clause, no mention, no explanation, not even a courtesy note. I felt physically ill. It was like the floor of that tiny office shifted beneath me. 12 years. 12 years of no sick days, no vacations, canceled birthdays, missed weddings, skipped dates. I gave up having a life because I thought I was building a future with my family, not a future for someone else to inherit behind my back. The worst part? They hadn't told me. They weren't going to tell me. I walked out without a word, didn't even clock out. At home, I sat on my couch in the dark, the papers clutched to my chest, my body cold despite the warm spring air. My phone buzzed. It was Isabel. "Hey, want to brainstorm the summer drink campaign?" I stared at the screen until it stopped. And then I did something I'd never done in 12 years. I turned off my phone and I let myself cry. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, eyes burning from tears that wouldn't come anymore. My living room was quiet. Too quiet for someone who usually filled the silence with prep lists, invoices, and calendar reminders. I kept thinking, why didn't they tell me? Why didn't they think I deserved to know? At 6 a.m., my alarm buzzed like it always had for the last 12 years. I reached for it automatically, halfway out of bed before I remembered. I wasn't going in. Not today. Not ever again. Unless something changed. I silenced the alarm and sat back down. By 8 a.m., my mom had left 2 voicemails. The first sounded cheerful. "Hi, sweetie. Hope you're not sick. Isabel said you didn't answer her text. Just checking in." The second one was less light. "Julia, I don't understand what's going on. Did something happen at the cafe?" I didn't respond. By 10:30 a.m., I had a knock at the door. I didn't move. When I peeked through the peephole an hour later, I saw a pink bakery bag on the ground with a note in my mom's handwriting. "Your favorite. Let's talk." But I wasn't ready to talk. I was still reeling. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the humiliation. Everyone at the cafe must have known. The accountant, the lawyer, maybe even Ellie, our teenage part-timer. Did they pity me while I scrubbed floors and stayed late to fix the schedule? At 4 p.m., I finally called the one person who would understand. "Emma," I croaked, my voice hoarse. "Jules?" Her voice sharpened. "Are you okay?" "No," I said, and the tears came again. "They gave the cafe to Isabel, 70%, and didn't say a word to me." She gasped. "You've got to be kidding me." Emma had been my college roommate, fellow business major, and the person who once said, "You treat that cafe like your firstborn." She knew what it meant. "Do not go back," she said firmly. "They don't get to erase you and expect you to keep serving lattes like nothing happened. I don't even know who I am without that place." "Yes, you do," she said. "You just haven't had the chance to find out." Emma invited me to stay the weekend. I packed a small overnight bag, but brought the ownership documents with me. I couldn't let them go. That night, over wine and takeout, Emma helped me do something radical. We made a list. Not of revenge, not of what to say to mom, but of everything I'd built, client loyalty programs I designed, the supplier relationships I nurtured, the seasonal campaigns that doubled holiday sales, the internal employee training system I wrote from scratch. And we made another list. What Julia Carter wants that has nothing to do with coffee. It was short. I stared at it, ashamed. A dog, a vacation in Ireland, a full night's sleep. And then, at the very bottom, a note Emma scribbled in her messy, tilted handwriting. To be seen, not just useful. That was the moment something shifted. They may have given Isabel the cafe, but they hadn't given me away. And I was done being the one who made everything work while getting nothing in return. Sunday evening came faster than I expected. I stood outside my parents' house at exactly 6 p.m., same time as always. The porch light was on, the familiar smell of rosemary chicken drifting through the air. For a split second, I felt like I was 13 again, bringing home a straight-A report card. But this wasn't that kind of visit. I had the folder in my bag, the one with the ownership documents. I wasn't just coming for dinner, I was coming for answers. My mom opened the door with her usual cheerful energy. "Julia, you're just in time." She leaned in for a hug, and I let her, but I didn't hug back. She pulled away slightly, a flicker of confusion crossing her face. In the kitchen, my dad was carving the roast. Isabel was setting the table, humming to herself. She looked up and smiled. "Hey sis, you okay? You've been off the grid." "Been busy," I said flatly. We sat down. My parents chatted about the neighborhood, Mrs. McKinley's new puppy, the town's upcoming farmers market. Isabel chimed in with a story about a difficult supplier who just wouldn't understand her creative vision for the new drink menu. I nodded and chewed quietly, pushing roasted carrots around my plate. No one asked why I hadn't been to the cafe. No one asked why I looked like I hadn't slept in 2 days. I waited until dessert. When my mom placed the apple crumble on the table, I reached into my bag and set the folder down between the placemats. The room went silent. "What's this?" my dad asked, already knowing the answer. "You tell me," I replied, because I had to find it in the office safe. My mom's fork clinked against her plate. Isabel's face went pale. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," my dad muttered. I raised an eyebrow. "So, you were going to tell me eventually? After I'd trained the next barista and cleaned the bathrooms a few more times?" "We were waiting for the right moment," my mom said softly. "It's been 6 months," I snapped. "You gave her 70% of the business and you didn't even think I deserved a conversation." My father put down his fork, his voice taking on that firm managerial tone I knew too well. "Julia, this wasn't personal. It was a strategic decision." "To cut me out?" I said, heat rising in my chest. "To pretend like I don't exist after everything I've done for that cafe?" "You're too stuck in old systems," he continued. "Isabel brings innovation. We need that to stay relevant. So I'm good enough to run payroll and clean out drains, but not to own a piece of what I built?" My voice cracked. "Got it." Isabel finally spoke. "I didn't mean to hurt you. Dad approached me with the idea. I thought you knew." "No," I cut her off. "You knew I didn't. And you said nothing." My mother reached across the table, but I pulled my hand away. "You raised me to believe that hard work pays off, that loyalty matters. But apparently, what matters more is being the fun daughter, the one who shows up with pretty ideas after 10 years away." "Julia," my dad said, exasperated, "this doesn't mean you're not important to us." "I'm not your employee, Dad. I'm your daughter. And right now, I don't feel like either." I stood up. "I won't be coming back to the cafe. If Isabel owns it, she can run it." "You're being emotional," he said sharply. "No," I replied. "I'm finally being clear." And with that, I picked up my bag, walked out the door, and didn't look back. I didn't sleep that night either. But this time, it wasn't grief that kept me awake. It was clarity. Something had shifted in me during that dinner. Maybe it was the way my father dismissed my pain with business jargon. Maybe it was Isabel's silence. Maybe it was the realization that for the first time in my adult life, I wasn't obligated to show up somewhere at 5:30 a.m. to be underappreciated. Monday morning, my alarm still went off, out of habit. I turned it off and lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my body still programmed for chaos. For the first time in years, I didn't jump up to fix something. There was nothing for me to fix anymore. Instead, I made coffee, not cafe coffee, but the kind I liked, French press, a little too strong. I sat by my window and sipped it slowly, watching the street come alive. Joggers, delivery trucks, a dog chasing its tail. I'd never noticed how peaceful my own block was. I spent the morning journaling, trying to untangle the threads of who I was without the cafe. I wasn't just the girl who worked long hours and made perfect cappuccinos. I was someone. I just hadn't figured out who yet. Around noon, I called Emma. "I think I'm ready," I said. "To do what?" "To remember what it's like to choose myself." That week, Emma helped me polish my resume for the first time in over a decade. We created a portfolio of my work: menu development, staff training programs, supplier partnerships. She called it a masterclass in independent business management. You're basically a general manager, marketing director, and operations lead rolled into one, she said, scrolling through the PDF. Any cafe in the region would kill to have you. I laughed, then caught myself. It felt foreign to laugh without guilt. By Thursday, I had 4 calls with potential collaborators: 2 cafes, a local co-op grocery store, and even a boutique hotel chain looking to open a flagship cafe space. I wasn't chasing jobs, I was being sought after. Word had gotten around. Turns out, when you quietly run the most consistent, respected cafe in the county for over a decade, people notice, even if your own family doesn't. On Friday, I received a call from Aaron Mendoza, the manager of The Nest, a successful cafe and co-working space in Portland. We'd met once at a regional hospitality summit. I remembered him being thoughtful, with kind eyes and a calming energy. "I heard you're no longer at Carter Brew," he said gently. "That's right. I'm sorry, but also not, because I've been waiting years for an excuse to ask if you'd consider helping us expand. We're launching a second location. I'd love for you to lead the opening." My heart skipped. Not out of fear, but something else. Possibility. "I'd like that," I said. As I hung up, my phone buzzed again. "Dad," it read, then a second time, then a third. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail, tight, rushed, anxious. "Julia, call me. We need to talk. There are problems at the cafe. Inventory's a mess. The register system crashed. Isabel's overwhelmed. Please." I didn't delete it. But I didn't return the call either. Because for the first time, they weren't calling me out of habit. They were calling me because they finally realized what I'd always been: irreplaceable. Saturday morning arrived with cloudless skies and a strange sense of stillness I hadn't felt in years. No rush to the cafe, no prep lists, no worrying if the milk order had come in or if the register tape had jammed again. Just me, coffee, and the quiet hum of a world that kept turning without me. By mid-morning, I'd received 2 more missed calls from my father, one text from Isabel, "Hey, can we talk?" and an email from the cafe's supplier asking for clarification on a delayed payment. I didn't respond to any of them. I was sitting on Emma's back porch, legs curled under me, when she came outside with a smoothie and a smirk. "You look peaceful, almost smug." "I'm not smug," I said. "I'm detached." "Same thing," she said, grinning. We both laughed, but my peace didn't last long. At 3:17 p.m., the call came from a number I hadn't seen in a while. Cam Whitaker, the owner of our town's most successful event company and a longtime partner of the cafe. We'd worked together on dozens of wedding brunches and corporate luncheons. He'd always insisted I be the point person. "Julia," he said as soon as I picked up, "I hate to bother you, but I've tried reaching your sister and your dad for 2 days. We've got a catered brunch for tomorrow, 26 guests, and nobody's confirmed anything." I closed my eyes. "Of course. I'm not at the cafe anymore, Cam," I said gently. There was a pause. "Right. I heard rumors. I was hoping they weren't true." "They're true," he sighed. "Well, that explains a lot. Look, I don't mean to drag you back in, but I just needed to hear it from someone competent." I appreciated the compliment, but it stung all the same. "Thanks, Cam. I hope the brunch goes okay. Honestly, if it doesn't, I might be calling you with a job offer." I smiled. "Noted." I hung up and stared at my phone for a long time. They were unraveling, and still, I didn't move. That night, the voicemail came. This time, my father didn't sound composed. He sounded tired, cracked. "Julia, I know you're angry, but Isabel's drowning. The register system failed. The staff don't know how to handle the upcoming tasting event. We're losing money every day. I need you to come in Monday, please. Help us fix this." My thumb hovered over the screen, and then I whispered the words I'd been holding inside for far too long. Let her handle it. I didn't owe them my competence anymore. I didn't owe them my labor, my nights, my peace. They made their choice. Now they could live with it. Monday came. I didn't go in. I didn't check my cafe email. I didn't call. Instead, I drove to Portland to meet Aaron Mendoza at the Nest's second location. It was still under construction. Unfinished wood, exposed beams, and potential everywhere. "I've got a budget, a timeline, and a team that needs a leader," Aaron said, handing me a folder. "You've got total creative control over operations. Build it your way." I ran my hand over the architectural plans. It wasn't Carter Brewhouse. It never would be. But maybe that was the point. Later that afternoon, while I toured the kitchen layout, my phone buzzed again. This time it was my mom. Her message was short, sad, and entirely off-brand. "We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought you'd always be there. That was our mistake. No excuses, no guilt, just honesty." I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed time. I needed air. I needed to know what it felt like to build something that was truly mine. Not handed down, not borrowed, not quietly stolen. That evening, Emma and I sat on her porch again, the sun sinking low behind the trees. "What if I don't go back?" I asked. She looked at me like I'd finally spoken the truth out loud. "Then you'll finally be free." And for the first time in my life, that didn't scare me. 2 days after my visit to Portland, I received an unexpected email with the subject line, "Let's talk, Westfield & Co." My eyebrows rose. Westfield & Co. was one of the region's most prestigious boutique hospitality groups. They'd opened a dozen concept cafes and cafes inside hotels across the Pacific Northwest. I'd seen their name on award lists, Instagram travel reels, and more than one Architectural Digest feature. I clicked open the email. Short, direct, professional. "Hi, Julia. I'm Erin Westfield, Creative Director at Westfield & Co. Your name was recommended to us by 2 different cafe consultants this week, one of whom said, quote, 'If you want your launch to run smoother than a La Marzocco espresso shot, get Julia Carter. We'd love to speak to you about an upcoming cafe lounge project in Seattle. Flexible timeline, creative freedom, leadership role. Are you available for a call this week? Best, Erin.'" I blinked at the screen. Was this real? I forwarded it to Emma with the subject line, "Okay, what just happened?" 2 minutes later, she called me, screaming, "I told you! I told you!" She was right. Again. That same afternoon, Isabel called. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hi," I said flatly. There was a long pause. "Hi," she replied, her voice small. I wanted to say sorry. Again, I know I said it at dinner, but it didn't feel like enough." I stayed silent. "I thought I could handle it," she continued. "The staff, the suppliers, the day-to-day, but I'm overwhelmed. And it's so clear now. I was writing on everything you set up. I didn't understand how much you really did until I had to do it." I exhaled, slow and heavy. "I didn't want to hate you," I said. "I still don't. But you let them erase me. You stood there and let them." "I know," she whispered, "and I regret it more than I can explain." There was silence. Finally, she said, "Dad's falling apart. He won't admit it, but he knows he messed up. Mom," she's scared. She keeps talking about selling. I didn't answer. "I guess I called because I'm afraid we're going to lose everything. And part of me wonders if there's still a way we can fix it." I stared out the window. I dreamed of being the one to save Carter Brewhouse. Now I wasn't sure it was worth saving. "Let me think about it," I said at last. "Of course," she said, relief softening her voice. "Take your time." After we hung up, I sat for a long while, my phone on my lap. 2 paths were opening in front of me. One led back to the cafe, the place I'd once loved more than anything, with a chance to rebuild on new terms, maybe. The other led to something entirely new, bold, independent, mine. But before I made any decision, I needed one thing: for them to want me back for the right reasons. Not because they were failing, but because they finally saw who I really was. Thursday at 10:02 a.m., I got a text from my mom. "Your father wants to meet. Just the 4 of us. No pressure. Can you come to the house tonight?" Part of me wanted to delete it. Another part, The quieter but steadier part told me this was a moment I'd spent 12 years earning. At 6 p.m., I pulled up to my parents' house. It looked exactly the same. Freshly swept porch, soft yellow light spilling from the windows, dinner smells in the air. But everything about how I felt stepping through that door had changed. We sat at the dining table, me, Mom, Dad, and Isabel, just like always. But this time, I had the power. Not because I yelled or demanded it, but because I'd stepped away, and they knew what it cost them. "Thanks for coming," my dad said stiffly, his hands folded too tightly on the table. His voice cracked around the edges, worn from stress. I didn't answer. I waited. "We want to apologize," he continued, "for how everything happened. You deserve transparency, respect, and ownership of what you helped build." My eyebrows lifted. That last part wasn't a word he used lightly. Isabel nodded. "Julia, I was in over my head. Still am. I thought I wanted leadership. What I wanted was to feel valued." My mom chimed in softly. "We let pride and assumptions lead us. You were always so strong, so reliable. We forgot to ask if you were also happy." I crossed my arms. "So what now? You've said sorry, but the cafe's still hers. The work is still mine. What's changed?" Dad took a breath. "We'd like to make it right. We spoke with the lawyer. Isabel is willing to transfer 35% of her ownership to you. You'd both be equal partners." I turned to Isabel. "Is that true?" She nodded without hesitation. "I don't want to run it alone. I want to run it with you, the way it should have been from the start." "And what about the title? My role?" "Co-directors," my mom said. "You'd each focus on your strengths, you on operations, Isabel on design and outreach." I looked at the three of them. For the first time, I didn't see a family pretending to listen. I saw a table full of people finally facing what they broke and trying to rebuild it. I leaned forward. "I have terms." My dad straightened. "Of course. Normal working hours, 3 weeks paid vacation, decisions made by majority vote between the three of us, and no more working myself into the ground to prove I belong." My mother reached out, this time hesitantly. "We can do that. And one more thing," I added. "You don't get to forget what happened. We build better this time. No secrets." "Agreed," Isabel said quietly. For the first time in years, I felt something unfamiliar settle into my chest. Not victory, not control, but peace. I didn't say yes that night, but I didn't say no. And when I walked out to that house, the stars were out, the air was crisp, and for the first time in over a decade, I felt like I had choices. The next morning, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea. No rush, no noise, no emails screaming for my attention. Just me, my thoughts, and the steady rhythm of a life no longer on someone else's leash. I pulled out my notebook, the one Emma insisted I keep, and opened to the page titled, "What Julia Wants." A week ago, it had 3 bullet points. Today, I added more. A life I don't have to escape from. Work that fulfills but doesn't consume me. A team that values my voice, not just my labor. Boundaries. Sundays off. My name on the building, not just the schedule. I closed the book and exhaled. At noon, I called Aaron from the nest and thanked him for the opportunity. "I'm going to stay with my family's cafe," I said, "but I can't tell you how much it meant to be seen, to be wanted." He was gracious, warm. "Well, if things ever change, our door's always open." I smiled. "Good to know." That afternoon, I drove to the cafe, not as the manager who clocked in and cleaned up everyone's messes, not as the daughter desperate for approval, but as a co-owner, as someone who had set her terms and had them met. The chimes above the door rang as I stepped inside. The place looked the same, chalkboard specials, reclaimed wood counters, the same earthy scent of espresso and baked goods. But it felt different. Staff looked up. One barista, Nina, actually clapped. "I was hoping you'd come back," she said. "It's been chaos." "I heard," I said with a smile. Isabel stepped out from the office. Her scarf was crooked and her hair was in a bun that screamed stress. But when she saw me, her shoulders dropped. "You came. Only because I don't trust you not to burn this place down. She laughed, relieved. Fair. We spent the rest of the day sitting in the back office, going over everything supplier hiccups, payroll confusion, marketing plans. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't easy, but it was honest. We restructured our leadership flow, created a shared calendar, and drafted a public announcement. Carter Brew House is officially co-owned and co-led by Julia and Isabel Carter. New season, same heart. Thank you for growing with us. We scheduled the post for Monday morning. As I locked up that night, I looked at the chalkboard wall where customers often left notes. Someone had scrawled in pink chalk, "It's better when you're here, Julia." I ran my fingers over the words and smiled. The truth was, it was better. Not just because I'd come back, but because this time, I hadn't come back as less. I came back as equal, as whole, and maybe, just maybe, as the version of myself I'd been fighting to become all along. 1 month later, I walked into Carter Brew House at 8:45 a.m., not because I had to, but because I wanted to. My new office wasn't tucked away in the back anymore. Isabel and I had converted the old storage room into a co-working hub for both of us. Her plants, my files, her color swatches, my coffee roaster's logs. We called it the Brew Lab. Every Monday, we started the week with a 5-minute huddle. No ego, no guilt, just updates and ideas. I ran numbers, she pitched new concepts, and for the first time in our lives, we operated as partners, not competitors. And it was working. Sales were up. Staff morale had improved. Customers noticed. One even told me, "This place feels more alive somehow, like someone finally turned the lights all the way on." But the most important shift wasn't the numbers. It was me. I'd started going to yoga twice a week, joined a book club, took weekends off, really off. I stopped checking my email at midnight. I stopped apologizing for not being available 24/7. I even adopted a rescue dog named Clover, who now greeted customers from behind the pastry counter like she owned the place. Because in many ways, she did. This life, it was finally mine. And the truth I had to learn the hard way. Sometimes, the most painful betrayals are the ones that push us toward the version of ourselves we were always meant to be. I don't regret standing up to my father. I don't regret walking away. And I don't regret coming back. On my own terms. Because this time I'm not here out of duty. I'm here out of choice. And choice is power. If you've ever felt overlooked, underappreciated, or like your worth was invisible to the very people you gave everything to, please remember this. You don't have to stay where you're not valued. You don't have to keep proving your worth to people who benefit from pretending not to see it. And most importantly, you don't have to wait for permission to become the person you already are inside. If this story resonated with you, I'd love for you to take a moment to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Share it with someone who needs to be reminded of their value. And in the comments, tell me, what's one thing you've walked away from to protect your peace? Because your story, your truth, matters here. And I'll be here to tell more stories like this one. From the heart, for the fighters, for the ones who kept showing up until they finally showed up for themselves. Thank you for listening.